What's up, guys? I'm Josh Mosiman. Welcome to This Week in MXA, episode number 143, presented by O'Neill Racing. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. We're going to talk about the Charlotte SuperMotocross race. Wow, it did not disappoint. We're also going to preview the upcoming Chicago SuperMotocross race. We're going to talk about some crazy statistics from the Lawrence brothers and check out the points as we head into the double and triple points weekends coming up the next 2 weekends. Lots of crazy stuff. Let's dive into it. Starting things off with the Charlotte SuperMotocross race, it honestly impressed me. It was better than I expected it to be, and I watched it from the comforts of my own home. I was not out there in the heat. I did, however, talk to our photographer, Brian Converse, who was covering for MXA this past weekend, also quite a few other people who had boots on the ground at Charlotte, and they said it was a hot one, and that's something you couldn't really tell from TV on the other side of the country, and it was hot, even hotter than it should have been because of the stadium atmosphere that it was in. 2 aluminum grandstands on either side of the track reflected the sun into the stadium, and then they're on a 4-lane wide drag strip, and the asphalt from the drag strip only radiates heat and holds the heat even more than a normal football or baseball stadium would. So it made for a hot day of racing in Charlotte. Also, they got lucky dodging the rain. I heard there was some rain in between Motos 1 and Moto 2, but luckily it still made for some great racing. Hectic to watch though. First turn, split start, going off that finish line, 4 riders wide. That was crazy. And I personally, as a pro, I was glad I was not racing. I was glad I didn't have to do that start. Luckily, there was no crashes there. The 65 class, now they really impressed me. Jumping the finish line, I was surprised that there was even that big of a finish line with such big consequences in between when they knew that the 65 All-Stars would be out there racing. But man, those 65s handled it. I'm glad to see nobody crashed off that. Also, the triple on the other side of the track, Jaden Smart was hitting that on a Cobra 65. Wow, that was impressive. Jumping into the 250 class, so cool to see Jo Shimoda get another win, his second win in a row after going 1-1 at Ironman and going 4-1 to get the overall win at the SuperMotocross race, the first ever SuperMotocross event. Pretty cool. Now he has the points lead going into Chicagoland, tied though with Hayden Deegan, who went 1-4 for 3rd overall in the 250 class. He said that the effects of his crash from the qualifying session in the morning were starting to pile up on him, and his body was tight and sore and just kind of cramped up in the second moto. It looked like he was going to be able to get the overall win. He just needed to make a couple more passes, but he settled in 5th place in that moto, and that gave him 3rd overall behind Tom Vial. Also pretty interesting to hear Tom Vial training with Chase Sexton and Ken Roczen now at the Moto Sandbox. He didn't explain that he's there full time, but it was cool to hear that he's mixing it up and riding some different tracks. 250 class was exciting. Crazy to see Hunter Lawrence not on the podium. He went down in both motos and ended up 8th overall. He's still looking good in the championship though, coming into this weekend at Chicagoland, because he has 39 points. He came in with the points lead. Now he's only 3 points behind both Jo Shimoda and Hayden Deegan, who are tied with the red plate. Congratulations to Chase Sexton for dominating the 450 class and going 1-1. Super impressive to see. Ken Roczen though, he did not make it easy on him. He was leading many laps and looked great. It was awesome to see Ken Roczen back on the track, and awesome to see Suzuki on the podium again this year. Also, Cooper Webb back in action with his new team, Star Racing Yamaha. Pretty funny that they didn't announce it until Friday morning before the race that he was officially on the team, but really cool to see Cooper back at the races. He wasn't so happy with his overall result, but still great to have him on the track, and I know he'll be rebounding for this weekend at Chicagoland and the season finale. And these 3 races will only make him even better going into 2024 Supercross next year with the new team. Now, the biggest surprising moment of the Charlotte SuperMotocross race was the fact that there was no Lawrence brothers on the podium at the end of the race. And this was the first time that a Supercross, Motocross, or SuperMotocross race has been done in the US where a Lawrence brother has not walked away with a trophy and with a podium finish. It's just crazy statistics. Obviously, we know that Jett won every moto and outdoors in the 450 class this year, but I did some research yesterday, and according to my math, they have not missed a podium in 574 days since the 2022 Anaheim 3 Supercross, when Hunter Lawrence crashed out in the whoops. Jett Lawrence had a 23 race podium streak. He hadn't missed a podium since the Unadilla and Redbud Nationals back in 2022 in the 250 class. However, his brother Hunter was 3rd at Unadilla and 2nd at Redbud in 2022, and he kept the Lawrence podium streak alive. This year, Hunter missed the podium 3 times in the outdoor season, and those were at Redbud, Southwick, and Ironman, but Jett obviously won every race. Jett podiumed every race in the 2022 2022 Supercross season in the 250 class, except the finale. He didn't race that one. He was already done. He tweaked his ankle in practice, so he didn't race the finale. However, Hunter, he was on the podium in second at that race, and that means that the last time a Lawrence brother hasn't got a podium was 2022 Anaheim 3. Crazy stuff. Obviously, Jett wasn't there. He was racing the East Coast back in 2022, so he couldn't get on the podium to keep the Lawrence streak alive. But it's pretty crazy to think that every time the Lawrence brothers have been to the race, at least one of them, if not both of them, has walked away with a trophy and a podium finish. So what does that mean now? Heading into Chicagoland Speedway, the SuperMotocross race there, it's hard to believe that there won't be another Lawrence brother podium, and they won't be starting up a new streak for the two of them. Also, big news, Hunter Lawrence will be going to the 450 class starting in Supercross next year. He's talked about it on a few different interviews, and that means that it's going to be harder for them to get podiums every weekend, but now we'll be seeing two Lawrence brothers probably on the podium in the 450 class, which will be an even bigger accomplishment for the two of them. Next up, let's look at the track map for this weekend's race at Chicagoland Speedway in Illinois. Even more motocross style. I think everybody was thrown off guard with how motocrossy the track was at Charlotte. Well, this track looks even more outdoor style with less Supercross sections. Obviously, it does have a few steep jumps on it, and it has one rhythm section that looks like it could be technical, but it's not even going to be as close to technical as it was at Charlotte last weekend, where they had multiple step-on, step-offs. They had a wall jump coming into it to really slow down the riders. So last weekend, it was a challenging rhythm lane that guys could quad or triple through. This time, it looks fairly simple with some triples and maybe a quad in there. We'll see how the track plays out once they build it, but this track is massive, spanning across the infield of the Chicagoland Speedway, goes out onto the track, and it even goes outside of the track through the barriers, and looks to be pretty wild. One big section that looks challenging and tough to me is the sand section with 4 sharp turns in it. Turning in sand is not easy. We see everybody do it at Daytona, and it is brutal for goggle guys trying to prep the goggles to make sure they don't get sand behind their tear-offs. It just eats away at the bikes, and it's also hard to pass because sand is thrown up in the air and you can't see anything. So I know exactly what it's like trying to ride sand with Supercross suspension at Daytona Supercross in the past, and I know this section will be challenging. Hopefully they don't make it too deep so it's completely one line, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Long story short, there are a few steep jumps, which means they will still want their Supercross suspension, but I think these guys are going to be going quite a bit softer this weekend, and it'll make the suspension technicians have their work cut out for them. Next, I want to take a closer look at the 450 point standings heading into Chicagoland Speedway. Chase Sexton has 50 points. He started out as the points leader in the 450 class with 25. He earned another 25 for winning at Charlotte. Jett Lawrence, he went 7-2 on the day to earn 4th overall. He has only 36 points, so that's a 14-point gap for Chase Sexton. However, this weekend they are paying double points. So instead of a 25-point win, you'll get 50 points for earning the win this weekend and 44 points for earning second this weekend. Then fast forward to LA Coliseum the following weekend, triple point weekend. 75 points are up for grabs there for the winner, and that makes things a lot tighter and a lot closer for the 450 class. I did the math. If Chase Sexton gets second at the next 2 rounds and Jett Lawrence wins at the next 2 rounds, then Jett Lawrence will win the championship by 1 point over Chase Sexton. So being consistent with seconds is not going to be enough. He has to beat Jett Lawrence at least one more time to get the overall and the championship. It is going to be a fight though. Ken Roczen, he's got 44 points. Dylan Ferrandis, he's got 40 points. Currently, I'm looking at the standings. It's going to be very interesting, and I thought there was a chance, but if Chase Sexton goes 2-2 at the next rounds, he'll end with 160 points total. Jett Lawrence would end with 161 if he wins the next 2 rounds. Things are close in the 450 class, and that's exactly how they wanted it, and that's exactly why they designed the series like this. First round single points, second round double points, last round triple points. It's very confusing, especially because it's different than the Pro Motocross series where they pay points per moto. These 3 races only for the overall finish. It's confusing, hard to understand, but it makes things exciting for the championship. Next up, we have a segment from testing the other day out at Blackmore Ranch on the new Rawrr Mantis electric bike. The thing was pretty exciting, and it was an interesting day. Check out some footage of Justin Lee riding and me talking about the bike right here.
All right guys, so I got to spend some laps on it. My first time ever riding a bike like this. I've never ridden a Sur-Ron, I've never ridden a Talaria, and that's what this bike is made to be like. I have a lot of buddies who've ridden those bikes and they have a ton of fun on them. What I think is the coolest is when you have a mini pit bike track in the backyard and you just have a bunch of friends on the same bikes going wide open, because there's not too many modifications for bikes like this yet. I know the Sur-Rons, they do have some mods, but it's all relatively similar, which makes it ultra fun just to battle with your buddies. So that's what I'm looking forward to, doing some of that on this bike. But overall, this is not a dirt bike, not even close. And it's also not a mountain bike. It's really in the middle, and it's definitely its own segment. For us today, it's like riding like a stink bug, so it's kind of hard to find the balance of the bike. But still, we're gonna mess with it some more. The interesting part about this company, Rawrr, is that they're located here in California. They're about 15 minutes from my house in Riverside, and they also have their own factory in China where they build the bikes themselves. So because of that, they're not outsourcing things, and they say that they're able to make changes and upgrades quickly. So I'm excited to see how we can help them develop this bike and make it a little bit easier to ride and a little more fun on the track. So Justin had fun on it. He's gonna be putting some more time on it. I have some friends who are still learning how to ride motorcycles, and I wanna use this bike to teach them how to ride. I think that'll be pretty fun. And then obviously there's lots of people all over the US, especially young kids, who are having a blast on these bikes. And it's time for us to see what the fuss is about and what the fun is all about. So we'll see what happens in the future, but we'll have a full magazine article talking about what we've done to make this bike better, and I'm excited to see how we can move forward with it. So thanks for watching.
Also, be sure to check out our KTM 65 race bike build video that we just posted on our YouTube channel and on our website, motocrossactionmag.com. Ryan DeRico and his son, Nixon DeRico, they had it up at Mammoth, built it all up, and the thing's pretty trick, pretty factory, so check it out at our website and YouTube channel. Those guys had some fun talking about it, and I'm proud of them. They did good with that video, and Trevor Nelson had some fun filming it as well. Thank you guys for tuning in to This Week in MXA, episode 143, I believe. Presented by O'Neill Racing. Lots of new bikes in the stables. That means we're going to be busy testing and filming some videos these next couple weeks. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you in the next one.